Hello and welcome to the Racers HQ podcast. I'm your host, Matt Murphy, and joining me on the line tonight, just a bunch of rock stars from Birmingham. We've got Nathan Adler. How are you doing, sir?
Burnt out rock stars at best.
Yeah. Pat Mullery, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing well, and I'm going to go with not has-beens, but never were's.
No, never worse. All right. And Todd Spiggard, who conveniently started eating a sandwich at the beginning of this podcast. Love you, Todd. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm alive.
Perfect.
An improvement over a few days ago.
Fast improvement.
Schrodinger's Todd there for a minute.
So, okay. This is already getting great. So tonight, I'm probably going to leave it in the hands of these experts because I did not go to Birmingham to the Lemons race at Barber. But, we'll try to run through some quick garage updates if there is time for any of that. Nathan, you got anything?
No.
Pat, you got anything?
No, my garage update was all in the rain in Birmingham.
Oh.
Because we haven't covered it, Hamilton is going to go drive for Ferrari in 2 years. Or
good for him.
So that's going to happen.
I wish him
like
the best.
That's been covered in general by the and then Horner Horner is or might be removed from Red Bull.
Man, we thought this was going to be an uneventful offseason.
Yeah.
I think
Andretti gets like the door slammed. Horner's getting in trouble.
Horner hasn't even denied it, has he? He's like, no, this is just. He hasn't been like, this isn't true. He's like, oh, this is just palace intrigue.
I don't remember what his stance was.
Yeah. I didn't bother checking the latest news on that, but
you guys seen a bit about apparently he and Adrian Newey have like contracts that protect each other. So like you can't fire one without like releasing the other or something like that. I didn't see the details on it. I saw one headline. It's one of those things that's always been speculated, but I guess they're finding the limits of that now. So if they get rid of Christian, Adrian may be a free agent as well.
That must have dropped on ESPN because I had a coworker bring that up today. He said, "Is Newey going to Ferrari?" And I'm like, "I don't know. That'd be amazing, but
that'd be awesome."
But I guess that could be a part of that deal. Wow. Okay.
Wow. Ferrari 2026. Here we come.
We skipped a segment. Is anybody drinking tonight?
Yes.
Pat, what are you drinking?
In honor of longtime listener, sometime caller Hunter Biederman, I am drinking a Russell's Reserve Private Barrel.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yes.
I've got the last of a Knob Creek rye barrel store pick, topped off with Little Turkey 101 to fill it out.
Oh wow, a blend. Oh,
yeah, a custom one-off blend. Yeah.
Fancy. Todd, are you drinking Pedialyte?
I have Ocean Spray's finest cran grape juice.
Great.
Working on my bronchitis recovery.
Nice.
This is not the Todd Spickard I know. I would have expected that to be some off-brand, lightly expired, Lidl brand cran grape substitute.
Sam's choice.
Yeah.
Only the best.
I got jealous of all the fancy applesauce being thrown around at these, so I went and picked myself a bottle of Evan Williams Bottled in Bond.
Nice.
Very good.
The best $14 you can spend.
An absolutely acceptable bottom shelf bottle.
Yeah. So.
If you want to feel real fancy, go ahead and pay the extra $4 and get the early times Bottled in Bond.
Okay, I'll try early times.
It's just the next cut above, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Okay, nice. I do love the Bottled in Bond.
Did you recycle the vodka?
I'm actually collecting those bottles for a special infusion project.
Oh.
Yes.
Exciting.
Finally, one last garage update thing which isn't really a garage update thing. Today I got hooked on learning about FPV drones, which are kind of like racing. I was listening to an economist's technology podcast about all the warfare going on with them and the advancements occurring with FPV drones and the sheer scale at which they're producing them and the cost savings. It's wild, guys. And on the flip side of that, you can like build them out of like, sin cut sin looking parts, right? So you can build up your own little quadricopter, and they're all very modular. It's very much like auto racing. There's racing components of it, and things like that. So might be a fun little side gig, little side hustle. $300-400. Todd, you got something on that? Sorry.
Yeah, Matt, you went around the horn on garage updates, and
Yeah, sorry. What you got, Todd?
I just have a little one, but I'm sure we'll get to it later. Just a very minor garage update.
Yeah, almost nothing.
Like that'll come out in the wash, I think.
I bet you have lots of garage updates. No. Nathan, you had a hot take on FPV drones or something?
No, they're super cool. My sister, she lives in Atlanta, and she has a friend that used to race them at a pretty high level, but it's been a few years ago now. So if you need a hookup, I might know a person.
I'm having trouble. Like, I've gotten into how to build them and how they're used in warfare, but I haven't figured out where the actual
non-combat
active racing.
applications.
Yeah, I want to know where like the active racing leagues are, right? Like maybe there's one in Dallas or something. I'd love to check that out because I couldn't find much in OKC. It seemed pretty bunk. So anyway, that's a boring topic.
That means you could easily be the OKC FPV drone champ.
Yeah, and they got these things going like 100 miles an hour now. Like
they're crazy.
Yeah.
And in their courses, they're doing flips and all kinds of crazy stuff on their race courses. It's ridiculous. It's like motocross, but like more.
Yeah. Anyway, more to come on that. That's all the random.
That'll be in our next Racers HQ spinoff podcast, RHQ FPV Drone Edition.
Yeah, Drone Edition.
Just followed immediately by Racers HQ Ophthalmology today.
Yep, got that eye appointment scheduled, and for the RHQ Foodie podcast, I was just telling Pat, I'm really frustrated. I can't legally buy seal oil. I'm like really burnt out by this. So if you've got to hook up on seal oil,
what on earth do you need seal oil for?
I was listening to a foodie podcast, and it's just like all this yummy umami and the Alaskan, food culture, and I'll never get to experience it.
You can't import it from Canada or something?
I don't think so. Can't be. I think FDA's anti.
I just need to.
I don't want that kind of seal oil, Todd.
No,
Todd's displaying a picture of the famous
He's
singer
no Heidi
Seal. I'm good on that. But thanks for the offer. All right, let's get to
Matt. I just use white lithium grease on my seals.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, no, and that's the only product that appears when you Google seal oil. So, anyway, and I'm not that stupid. I'm not going to eat that. Come on, guys. You think you're going to pull a fast one on me? All right.
Look, I'm not the one who bought recycled vodka.
Fair. Variety is the spice of life. Okay. You guys went to Barber over the last weekend. Some of you arrived and drive. Some of you towed down. It sounded like a great Lemons experience. I had a lot of faith in the team heading into the weekend. I was attached to the team chat, so I felt like I was there the whole time. But we need a full report from boots on the ground. I don't know. Who wants to start? Todd, do you have anything to say about the entrance of the weekend? Todd's going to skip on that. He's got more to say at the later point.
I'll jump in. Well, I had a couple of firsts this weekend.
Well, hold on. I did learn do not do back-to-back race weekends. I should have known better.
You'd mentioned that's kind of tough, and I thought that might be a little tough on you. But so you went down to the NASA season opener in Houston, and then a week later turned around and did a Lemons race.
Yeah, Houston was a good weekend. The car ran great. I improved. I'm still running mid-pack, but my time's getting better. It was good weather, but it was cold and rainy, and so my cold started on the way back. And then having, one day to wash clothes and repack, and then Mulry came over on Tuesday to help re-prep the car for Barber. I really didn't get any rest, and then you get in the car with Eric for the 10-hour tow, and it all snowballed from there. So I knew it would be rough, and now I know don't ever do back-to-back race weekends.
So you think that's what led to the bronchitis? Was you just got worn out with the lack of rest?
Yeah, plus the weather and lack of rest, and yeah.
And this is your 96 Ford Mustang with a 4.6 liter V8. Is that what we're driving?
Yep.
Nice. Okay. So you had to leave Wednesday to make it to Birmingham to get the car dropped off and get ready for Friday testing, huh?
Mulry came over Tuesday night. We changed tires and wheels, brakes. What else did we do? He did some driver compartment work. Oh God, it was a mess. I had to take a shock off to get. I think I bent a rear brake line, and we had to take the shock off out of the trunk to get it to fit. But that was a new experience. Anyway, thanks Pat for the help.
Yeah.
Eric drove down from Oklahoma City early Wednesday morning. Eric and I towed and drove. Let me see. We stopped in Mississippi Wednesday night, finished the drive Thursday morning to Barber. And Eric and I we waited for 4 hours, but it was good. We got in line. There was lots of people in line, so we got a good paddock spot with electricity, front row right across from the judge's BS Tech Garage.
It was a good paddock spot.
Yeah,
that was 2 thumbs up for the spot.
So getting there early and waiting paid off, and we unloaded.
Except every other team that's listening to this, don't do that.
Yeah,
show up late on Thursday.
Yeah, you want to be on that 4th tier up by the chain link fence next to the guys that are like rebuilding a roll cage and painting their car for the first time. That's
got the best views of the track, certainly.
Todd, I'll give you this. You're becoming our paddock spot whisperer. You've already reserved our spot for the Lemons race at Hallett. So you're hired, man. You know, we need paddock spots everywhere. So
Lemons Hallett, I've already reserved 11 and 12, which I think are the premium spots right next to the clubhouse, across from the bathroom, and next to the shade trees.
Yeah, that's the spot.
Yeah, nice. So you get to Barber, you get the good spot, you get set up. Much going on Thursday night at all, or is it pretty much just dinner and?
No, dinner, Eric and I put up. I brought. Mulry offered the wedding tent, but that was it wouldn't fit in the car with all the other gear we had, the truck. And I ended up buying a 20 by 10 pop-up, but it's got sides and zippers. And so, but it's fairly easy to put up with 2 people. Troy, we parked next to Troy and Brett Sellers, and they helped put that up. So we just got our paddock space set up and unloaded. The car was unloaded.
I'll say
relatively uneventful.
That pop-up was actually really, really good. It's a little narrow for for our whole crew, to stay under it, and have the car in there, which is the nice part about the wedding tent. But man, it was like when we pulled it down on Saturday, that was nice to just be like, it's a pop-up tent, so it's just like whoop, and it's shut. It's not like the whole pipe up and down thing like we have to do with the wedding tent. I wish we could find. Nate and I talked about that a lot. Yeah, I wish we could find a better solution that's large but also easy up and easy down. But I think that's just that's a Venn diagram that doesn't cross.
Yeah, it's inflatable circles.
The CMC guys liked it when I took it to Houston to give it a dry run and borrowed Mulry's lights and Mardi Gras lights, and we put it up and it became the center of attention. They called it the Todd Mahal. And it was the party spot. But yeah, it instead of the regular 10 by 10s that blow away in the wind, this one's just 10 by 20. It's got good structure, but it's easy pop up. It does take 2 people. 4 makes it easier, but it goes up in 5 or 10 minutes. Zipper it, if you put a car under it, there's not a lot of room. But if you don't have the car under it, there's room for like 8 guys and a heater and tables and everything.
Nice. My only complaint with the pop up was, as someone who is over 5'8", I hit my head on that middle bar between the 2. It's 2 10 by 10s connected together, right? I whacked my head on that middle bar. I think it was probably 15 or 20 times over the 2 days. That was the only downside. Everything else about it was good, but when we were trying to work on the car, which we did a little bit of later in the weekend, it got a little frustrating.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Pat and I on the way home talked about it though. We need to find a retired bouncy castle and just gut the middle of it and just be able to turn that into a thing. Just inflatable like Corvette Racing does. Just a big old inflatable arch.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think there are, real solutions out there for the inflatables, but I'm sure they're not.
Yeah,
they're not
it's the
free.
$10,000 is the problem.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Although, didn't you found a paint booth one that was pretty large for
Yeah.
$1,000 or $2,000?
Yeah, you can get ones that are similar size to the tent we had this past weekend. Maybe even just a touch bigger for like $1,500 for an inflatable paint booth. But they do specifically call out like don't use it in bad weather, don't use it outdoors,
that's right.
which is exactly what you want it for. So, so your mileage may vary.
Okay, so get all set up in the paddock. Big win. I mean, relatively big win, I think, on that 10x20. That seems like a good idea. Might have to put one in the cart. Any other drama Thursday night?
No, the boys came in. They all flew in late.
Oh, nice.
I think I was at the hotel, but they came in like 10 or 11. Pat, Hunter, Ethan Yeager flew in from Florida.
Nice.
Yeah, and then I got in Friday morning at like 9 o'clock or something, which was, I tell you what, guys, arrive and drive. It's kind of awesome. That's way better than like almost falling off a bridge into the bayou, like on the way to Sebring. This is an improvement. I went full Neil Losi with my bags. I had my helmet bag packed to the gills with clean socks and underwear. I had a couple t-shirts and a race suit and a Hans in my backpack, and that was it. And it was exactly what I needed. Not one thing more. And the only one other item I could have hoped for was just another pair of shoes would have been nice for Sunday. It ended up raining a lot Sunday, and my shoes ended up getting pretty wet. So I actually ended up wearing my driving shoes through the airport on the whole way back home. So technically, I guess even that I was fine. But Neil knows what's up. It's the way to do it. Don't bother with a check bag. Just do a helmet bag and a backpack, you cowards.
Shots fired, cowards. Nice. Did you pack the same way, Pat Mowry?
Oh no, I'm a coward. I was I was full not Neil Losi. I had a check bag with my race suit and race bag and all that in it, and about 14 different layers, and because the weather at Barber is always all over the map on this weekend, which it held true. It definitely was. I was a little overpacked, but I was underpacked in my backpack, so But I don't like having my skivvies in my helmet. I'm just particular that way.
Yeah. Todd, how did you pack, and what thoughts do you have on this subject?
No, I did the arrive and drive, flew to Milwaukee for Road America, and I think I pulled it off pretty good. I had the rolling suitcase, but it was small, and then all my gear and Hans was in a backpack, and then I just had the helmet with a helmet carrier, so it was 3 pieces, but in reality it was a roller, a backpack, and a side piece. So that is kind of, and then you just roll it through the airport. It's nice.
Yep. That's the way to do it. Very cool. All right. So
boys came in Thursday night, and Friday morning we got there for test and tune Friday morning.
Nice. So that seems to have gone well. I feel like everybody got to drive. Is that right, Nathan? You said you went out at 9.
Yeah, no, I got to the track at 9. Pat picked me up. I didn't actually go out on track till after lunch sometime, after we did tech. Yeah, but Friday, I think everybody got out, got a turn in. We pretty quick. Todd, you went out first, and you went out, and the car was running a little goofy. And when you brought it in, we went ahead and pulled the spark plugs. That was kind of our initial concern for whatever reason. I don't remember Eric targeted in on that right away, but he did. Yeah. And we found out the number 1 cylinder, the electrode was the band was completely closed. There was no gap on the spark plug. And the rest of them looked fine. So we were like, oh, that's weird. Maybe it was a fluke, bad. It got smashed in transit or something happened, whatever. So we regapped that plug, put them all back in. And we sent out, I think Ethan went next. He didn't have any complaints. Hunter went out. He didn't have any complaints at first, and then he brought the car in. Same thing. Hey, it was losing power, skipping, something was weird. We pulled the plugs again, and now the number 1 cylinder was fine. The number 5 cylinder, though, the porcelain around the electrode had cracked and broken. And so we started trying to figure that out of, thinking through what would cause this. Well, it looks like detonation, but like looking at the spark plug and the other ones, they didn't look like it was running super lean. And so we looked at the plugs and we're like, well, maybe they're counterfeit. That kind of got tossed around for a little while as maybe it was just their crappy plugs. But then Todd, you said you bought them at AutoZone or something, so that shouldn't have been the issue. And we kicked around all kinds of ideas of like, well, maybe it's like there's some weird piston to spark plug clearance issue, but that wouldn't make any sense because it would have done that immediately.
Yeah.
So we just
never
keep
the
checking
obvious
things. Yeah. We tried to borrow a bore scope to look in the motor to see if we could, see how the piston looked or if there's anything weird going on there. But the bore scope we borrowed was terrible. I mean, it must have been from like 2004. It was 144p resolution.
4-bit processor.
Yeah, it was bad. So we couldn't tell anything. And so we said, well, that's weird. What a fluke. That's crazy. And so we sent Pat to the auto parts store to buy a new set of spark plugs. And we slapped a whole new set of plugs in it and parked it for the night. And that was test day, and everyone was happy.
I would say problem. The problem came on Saturday, but Friday, generally, the car ran well. Everybody got some seat time. The only thing we noticed was like when we would bring it in and rev it up, in park to 3,000, you could hear it missing a little occasionally. And so that's what led us to let's pull the spark plugs and look. Mm-hmm. And we did what you guys just said, put it back together. We continued running. I mean, everybody kept taking it out to get a little bit of seat time. Mulry got some seat time. Hunter got some seat time. So I was glad. The weather was nice. Everybody got seat time. We thought the car was ready to go and everybody was getting used to it. So for what turned out happening with car problems on Saturday and torrential rain on Sunday, I'm at least glad that everybody got some time on Friday and the car was doing well. It was looking up at that point. We had fun at Tech, with our Buc-ee's theme. You guys can talk about that. Y'all did a great job with that.
Yeah, let's go to the theme. I want to hear tasting notes on Barber driving it. Maybe Pat between the BMW and the Mustang, and then Nathan as well, first time there. But yeah, let's talk about the theme. So you guys did a Buc-ee's theme. I guess there's a newish Buc-ee's in Leeds.
Yeah, I don't know how long that's been there. But we all got hopped up in our merch. Some people had to purchase merch. Some people already had a full accoutrement. Mm-hmm. It was me. I already had the full accoutrement. And
Nathan had boxers.
No, swim trunks.
Oh, swim trunks. Okay, swim trunks and a t-shirt.
Black and white checkered, no less. It was very appropriate.
Yeah. So yeah, we went through, and a generous bribe to the judges never hurts, and I think we got through completely scot-free, didn't we?
Yeah, I wanted to do something.
We had to go through twice.
I forgot about that, Pat.
So we rolled through the first time, and the car wouldn't start. And it was sort of like, what is going on here? And that was was not a problem we'd had up to that point. So we rolled back to our paddock space, and I don't know what was it. Do you know?
Yeah. So in Tech, we went to start the car, and you could just hear the starter just chugging, turning over. Rah, 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 rah. That was fine.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Voltage from the battery was fine, and so Eric starts pulling like injectors not injectors, but whatever, starts pulling ignition parts and starts checking voltage up there. And we kind of start talking through. I'm like, well, what if it's just something stupid like a fuse or like
it was a fuse.
Yeah, and so we get to checking the fuses, and lo and behold, one of them was it didn't look bad. Like you looked at it and it didn't look burnt out or anything. But we tested it with the voltmeter and it was junk. So we switched it and car started right up. So that was cool. Nice. So, and then now we know for sure that the way your car is wired up, it's like battery, starter, then ECU and everything. I think, Matt, isn't that how yours is too? Or something like where the starter always has power, but everything else may or may not.
Yes, in general. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree.
So Matt, on the theme, I just wanted to give some shout out to the rest of the team. I wanted to do a theme. I know that TARP's been there forever. They know Mulry. Arguably you don't have to do much, or you can do something. But I wanted to do something, and I know that a Buc-ee's theme is just grabbing stickers at the store on your way to it seems like a throwaway, but it snowballed great. I've got a bunch of bumper stickers for the front and the rear of the car, and some Bucky stickers. The guys all wore T-shirts. Mulry had a hat. Mulry brought a 6-foot inflatable that we put on top, and we had the generator on the back of the trunk. Mulry bought a pillow. We zip tied that to the front of the car. Hunter bought a blanket for his kids, and he wore that like a cape. The guys had T-shirts. I think Eric was giving out Bucky nuggets. I found a Bucky theme song on YouTube. So it snowballed into a full bit, and we had Bucky blown up. We had this great paddock spot right in front of the judges. So we had Bucky blown up, and little kids came over and wanted to take their picture later in the day, and people kind of could recognize because we were the people with Bucky. So it was a silly theme, but I think it turned out great. We had a Bucky car. It was fun.
That's awesome. I'm glad you get into that, Todd. You're a world famous NASA pro racer now, Rookie of the Year, Hard Charger Award, and you gotta let loose every once in a while.
Racers HQ 2003 Driver of the Year.
Racers HQ Racer of the Year. It's good that you get to twist off every once in a while and have some. And I mean this literally. Like, it's good that you get to have some fun. A little bit of a less serious environment. I think for the TARP main team, it's like our version of pro racing, and so we just try to take it super serial.
We're super serial.
Well, that explains all our success.
Oh yeah.
Thumbs up to the judges. Let me see, Chris Champion, Kristen, and Eric Rude. They actually had a theme. They did a baseball theme. So nice. Chris Champion was dressed like a 1920s baseball manager, and Kristen was dressed as
the full Field of Dreams outfit.
The League of Our Own.
League of Their Own.
And she had on Bucky shorts underneath her baseball skirt. Another guy had on a uniform. I think they were playing. And of course, Rude from Chicago had like White Sox, Red Sox gear on. They were throwing a ball around in the tech area, so they had their own little team. That was nice.
Nice. I could dig it. Bucky's stuff is like all the hipster rage in San Francisco when I went.
Was it really?
Yeah, like
that's a riot.
Can't get it over there. It's not a West Coast brand yet. It's underground.
Yeah, it's no Lululemon.
Right. Bucky's is its own thing.
Yeah,
it's funny.
All right, so but okay, I want to hear tasting notes. You got A0 through tech.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. That's the goal, right? Okay.
What did it matter? I mean, we could have been given 10,000 laps. It wouldn't have changed the outcome of the weekend.
Hey, I thought it mattered. I was rooting for you guys. I told Nathan, you guys are going to win this thing. So I was mildly incorrect. Nathan, I want to know your tasting notes. You've driven the E36 once.
I have.
You drove. Is this your first time to drive a Mustang in anger that you can talk about?
Yeah. So first time Mustang, first time stick axle, first time at Barber. It was delightful. I tell you, the Mustang. We've discussed this before. I'm not terribly picky, right? I'll drive anything, and just whatever it'll do, I'll just go with that. I didn't feel that the Mustang and the E36 were that different. They're both big, fairly heavy, fairly powerful cars. So like they share a lot in common in terms of their dynamics. Mm-hmm. The Mustang has some limitations, like ABS versus no ABS. Todd's car doesn't. So that was just something to be mindful of as you're going around. And I think we discovered on accident the alignment was kind of goofy on the Mustang. We had a more toe in than we wanted. And so that ended up affecting the handling a little bit. But it was still totally serviceable. It was working great. I got out, and I think I only did 5 or 6 laps just to get a feel for the track, get a feel for the car. But it was funny pulling out of the pits because, I've done hundreds, if not thousands of laps of Barber on iRacing. And so coming out in real life, doing that very first out lap, it's funny because you're like, oh, this is I know this. But also it feels completely foreign. Like none of the angles, none of the elevation changes look quite right in real life. And, the banners across the back tire walls on stuff have changed since iRacing did their graphic design. And so it was like a deja vu of like, I know this perfectly, but also I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Interesting.
Ton of fun, gorgeous track. Track surface was smooth and nice, compared to Hallett, which is, it's not off-road racing, but it's not
rustic,
too far off sometimes. It's a little rustic. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Were you distracted by any of the odd art pieces, like the lady hanging from the tree, going down in the corkscrew? And
no, those did not catch my eye. I was very focused on just getting around the track, dealing with the bit of traffic we had on test day, which was not too bad. There was, what was there, maybe 50 cars total, kind of intermittently on track throughout the day. It was pretty light. I got some quick laps in. I think we ended up, I don't know, like somewhere top 10 exact-ish for the teams that were on practice day. But that wasn't pushing too terribly hard. We did not meet my one kind of universal standard of what is a respectable lap time at this track, right? Which is what is the Spec Miata lap record? Because whatever car you're in, if you can do that, you're in respectable territory. And we did fall a little short of that, so that was disappointing.
Yeah, 1.5 seconds, I think. But
something like a second and a half. But again, it was test day. Like the last thing you want to do is break the car and send it into an Armco barrier on test day.
Todd, what you got a hot take over there? What's going on, Todd?
Yeah, I drove Barber for the first time last summer in my EcoBoost with NASA. Y'all still there?
Yep. Oh yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. Love the track. It's wonderful. And it was, it wasn't a race car lap, so I was getting like 158, 157. Played it online a little, did it at Mulry's. Anyway, so I was excited to get back. And like I said, Friday was nice weather. We got to drive, and I was pretty happy. I think I got like a 153, and that was pretty good for me. I mean, I was looking, we were like number 13 out of 30 or whatnot. Everybody else goes out, does 155s, 158s, 155, whatever. Young buck Nathan strolls up, comes in after 4 laps. I glanced down at the lap timer. He pops a 148, just like it was nothing. He's great. He didn't even know what he had, and I was like, you just drilled me by 5 seconds. I wasn't going to tell him. I told him later, but it was pretty awesome.
Everybody on this call has experienced that. So yeah. There's something he's not good at. We'll find it eventually. Mulry? Yeah, golf,
Nathan.
Yeah. Mulry, was that your first time to drive the Stang, or had you driven that before?
No, this is my first time in Todd's car, and it was
tasting notes.
It was great. Until it wasn't, but when it was working great. It had good power and really very similar power to the E36. It comes on a little bit lower and it tops out a little bit lower. But
the bottom end of gears is a lot more useful. Like, in the hairpin, you're just leaving it in third. Like most of the track, I know we talked about this, you can just leave it in third and fourth for almost every corner and it'll just pull out of it, where the E36 is not as happy in that.
Yeah, you got to motivate it. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to keep the BMW on plane a little bit more if you can. I thought it was great. It is a little bit more of a point and shoot car because of it being stick axle and not having ABS. So it was definitely happier if you were braking in more of a straight line and really getting on it in a straight line. But it was not it wasn't like learning a whole new way to drive. It was really it was a fine car, and I think we would have done pretty well if we could have if it would have stayed together on Saturday. But that wasn't to be, unfortunately.
Yeah. Preview, yeah, forecasting or foreshadowing, sorry.
Spoiler.
So Friday night, much going on? You guys changing the spark plugs again? Anything else? Any other maintenance happening?
Changed spark plugs, changed tires, realized I think one of them was a little more worn than we realized, so we went ahead and swapped them all just to be safe.
Had a nice barbecue dinner at Nick and Jim's in Birmingham.
Yep,
that's right.
Team barbecue dinner.
Nice. Very good. That sounds like a pretty low drama Friday night. All right, so So Saturday, you get to the track. Sounds like you guys are ready to go racing. Not a lot of anxiety at this point. Just going to get out there and go racing. What's the order? You got Mulry up front, I think.
Mulry's pole position. I was going out second. Ethan third, Hunter fourth, and then Nathan was going to start us off Sunday morning.
Yeah. And I don't know that Nathan or Ethan guy much. Is he an experienced Lemons racer?
Yeah, he's great. Ethan Yeager is a friend of Dave Mulvey's. When Dave had his Scudera team, 10 years ago, Ethan used to live in Houston, drove with them. So 2 years ago, when I brought Mustang 63 to Lemons Houston for the first time, that team was me and Dave Mulvey and Ethan and Neil Losey and Chris Champion. So that's when I first met Ethan. Great guy. He's a racer. He lives in Florida now, wife and a couple younger kids. I think he's had like RX-7s or Z350Zs in the past. He's kind of taken the break from racing because he's got the young kids, but he flies into Houston or Barber to meet us, once a year. Really
he was
great
at
guy.
last year, wasn't he, too?
Yeah, so sorry, he was at Lemons Houston in 22, and he was at Hallett May of 23 with us as well. So
nice.
Yeah, he comes once or twice a year.
Good dude. Good wrench.
Yep.
All right, so Mulry, you go out. 130 cars on track, and
talk about the start.
Yeah, boy, that was something. So we started off, and these guys may know a little bit more than me because when you're in the car, you don't have a lot of global knowledge. You just see what's around you. But went out and with Todd's got the stock fuel tank on his car, so there was a little bit of a concern about our fuel burn rate and if we'd be able to extend our stints as long as we wanted to. So we tried to grid up basically as late as possible, so we didn't sit there, with the engine running, burning gas. Went out, did gosh, I don't know how many laps under double yellow, and then they drop. This was really confusing, although it was really confusing. They drop at start finish, and I was on the backstretch when it happened. They drop. They still have a standing double yellow, and then they drop the green flag, and
like
so that's
aggressively waving green flag.
Yeah,
with the double yellow,
right? And so that's to get the clock started, right, in an endurance race. But everybody got confused because it's like on the front stretch because it's like they're waving the green flag, but a double yellow. So that was a little bit of a cluster. And while this is happening, more cars than usual were dying on track on the pre-start, on the pace laps. And so I know there were at least two that were dead off track on the backstretch between the downhill S's at the museum and then that left right jog at 10A and B. There were, and so then they had to get those off, and then apparently I didn't see this. Apparently someone under double yellow rear-ended another car hard enough that it pretty much totaled out one of the cars. So those both needed to come off. And that track is weird the way it stacks up sometimes in places. Like there's no good reason that it should really stack up, especially under double yellow. You don't even need to touch your brakes on the entire track, really. But it does. And so then as we're about ready to go, actually to get to racing, someone blows their engine on the back stretch and oils down the track pretty much all the way from museum turn to turn 11, 12, basically.
Gross.
And so
a good half mile.
Yeah, and right on the racing line. And so so then we're all going around again. They bring out the oil dry truck and the sweeper. And so there's a line of oil dry that entire distance. So we go around a few more times, and the sweeper's out there sweeping, and then they get.
We were all watching from the timing tower. We thought somebody was on fire. We just saw this big plume of smoke. We're like, oh no! And we figured out it was sweeper truck. But for a minute, everybody on top thought somebody was on fire.
Yeah, so we're under double yellows probably for, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes maybe at the start of the race, like after we've actually gone green. And then I come down at some point, I come down through museum and all the yellow flags disappear and they're still oil dry all over that track. And, but we're racing and people are driving through it and I'm on the backstretch and I'm like, at one point I'm like, this is like driving through Spy Hunter, right? Like there's literally so much oil dry in the air. I can't really see what's on the other side of it. So I'm just gonna, Ricky Bobby my way right through this and hopefully nobody, we don't get into anybody. So fortunately that worked out. Raced for, close to an hour. And
yeah, you were over an hour. It was actually almost 90 minutes before you
was
came
it really?
in. Yeah.
Okay. So, like the third to last or second to last lap before I came in, I noticed that so Todd has an air fuel display in the car, and it was reading in the 14s. But Todd had told me before, in fact, when I was over at his house on the week, that like it's reading 14s, and I said, that's really high. We should have it in the mid 12s at wide open throttle. But it was sort of like
stoic.
right. But but it's running fine. Right. So, and so it's still doing that at wide open throttle. I mean, you don't care when you're at idle or, part throttle, like it's going to bounce around and get lean and all that. But at wide open throttle, it was concerning, but it was still running well. And then, like
especially with the fresh plugs, like it sounded way healthier. It was running hotter.
100%. And, like 2 or 3 laps before I came in, I noticed that like that car pulls really strong from like about 4,000 or 4,500 RPM to just about a little short of 6,000. I was trying to shift somewhere between 55 and 6, depending on, traffic situations and whatever, but there's no sense in stressing out a motor. And, but that's where it really wants to pull hard, is in that range. And, I noticed, it was going up the hill out of turn 2, like 55,000 RPM in third gear. And it just did not want to rev past that. And I'm like, well, that's not normal for this car. Right. And, so I kind of back off and I'm checking my water temp and oil pressure. Those are all good. Just trying to kind of run through my head, like what's going on here? Is this something we can keep going, or do we need to bring it in? Drove around again. And I was noticing that on the backstretch, kind of that same thing, like above 5,000, the power was not there anymore. And as I was kind of diagnosing it, I went past, pit entrance. So I kind of backed off that next lap and I'm trying to radio in. And I think Eric had said that we were having a problem. It wasn't a problem with the radio in the car. I could only hear our transmissions from the paddock, but apparently the handheld that Eric had was catching all sorts of other folks on that same frequency. So I think it was difficult for him to hear me. So I was trying to radio in, that I was going to come in and trying to reach them and couldn't. So I backed off, I'm like waving cars by, and it wasn't like slow. I mean, this wasn't like I was going to get, turtled at the top of the hill or anything like that. But, I just backed off. I'm like, we're just going to ease this car in. Let's drive into the paddock so we don't, cause any more damage, because something's not right. I don't know what's wrong, but something's not right. Kind of ease it in, drive it into the pits. Eric finally gets on the radio. It finally is able to hear me on the radio. I tell him, look, I'm losing power. I'm going to bring it into the paddock. And so I pull in and, and park it. And when we rev it up, it is rough. Like at low idle, it is like clearly down a cylinder or two. And so at that point we shut it off and started trying to diagnose what was going on.
Yeah. So that was when so Anton Lovett came over to help us about this time. We started chatting with him.
And Anton was driving with Troy, who is right next to us.
Anton's awesome. I'd never met him before, but I love that guy. I cannot wait to like share a paddock space with him again. He's fantastic. He comes over and we're talking about, we broke a porcelain earlier, and all this time we're trying to get the spark plugs out, see what's going on. We start with number 5, and sure enough, number 5 is cracked again. We pull spark plug number 6, which is right next to 5 on the driver's side bank, and it's also cracked. And so we're like, okay, this is whatever it is, it's real bad. We start talking about it with Anton. He's like, I think that it has to be running lean. And that's when you piped up, Pat, that you're like, hey, yeah, I saw it 14 plus AFR, on the gauge. And we all start kind of putting it together going, okay, this is blowing up plugs because it's detonating. Why is it detonating? And so we're looking around, Eric and myself and Ethan and Anton are all looking at it, trying to figure out, is there something wrong with the computer? Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. It's a Ford factory tune running, like decent fuel. Like, we're not running like some 81 octane swill from the desert, we got decent fuel. We got a stock tune that should be super, super rich. We have new plugs in it. The injectors aren't screwed up. We know they're, it was running fine earlier. They're not clogged completely because the plugs were still dirty, or like they would be from, combustion. It wasn't that nothing was happening in that hole. And so eventually,
but they did read lean. I mean, when you looked at them,
a little bit lean. Yeah. We finally realized there was a rubber elbow right after connecting the like air meter or air metering valve to the actual throttle body. And that for whatever reason, previous owner like didn't put a bracket on it, and so no fault of Todd. Like, you got the car like this and it worked fine before, but that hose clamp had kind of worked itself loose and was making a gap. So we figured as best we can tell, the engine was getting unmetered dirty air coming in after the air meter into the engine, causing it to run lean and detonate. And so because it was after the airflow meter, the ECU couldn't compensate. And so unfortunately that was what we figured our problem was. So we went and borrowed a different bore scope, one made this decade, and we poked it in the hole, and immediately you can just tell where those pieces of porcelain had been bouncing all around. And actually you could see on the corner of this circular piston where it had chipped, like broken the top above the ringland. And so there was just stuff bouncing around in there. We were getting oil blow by. You could tell from the broken spark plugs, it was all oily. Yeah. And so it's just immediately obvious, like this motor's dead, And I think it even, like, the piston itself was slapping against the cylinder bore.
It was making a really bad, rod knock kind of sound of piston. So we probably, I'm guessing you've probably got a broken ring in there too.
So, in hindsight, it all is obvious. Like, as soon as we broke that first porcelain, we should have realized, A, we need to get that broken piece out, 1, and 2, like, we're detonating, we're blowing up spark plugs. This is our own fault. But hindsight's 2020.
But Nate, the truth is, when we saw it running 14s at wide open throttle on Friday, we should have investigated. I mean, this is 100% 2020 hindsight, right? But going forward, like, if we see that data in a data stream, we need to investigate that, because this is what happens. You run it, too lean, it gets too hot, and stuff starts breaking in, catastrophic fashion. And it could have been a lot
part of
more
the problem with that on test day. We had 4 out of the 5 drivers were new to the car. And I know when I was driving, I was looking at oil temp, water temp, oil pressure. I didn't even realize there was an AFR gauge in there until somebody mentioned it. I think Saturday morning. So it wasn't something I was looking for. Shame on me. I should have taken a better evaluation of the cockpit. But
I'm with you, because I saw it and I didn't pay any attention to it on Friday either, because it was the same thing. Like, you're trying to learn all the rest of the stuff in the car and just make sure you've got oil pressure.
Quick health check on Todd. So Todd, at this point, the car's not looking great. You're not feeling great at this point either. How are you feeling as Mulry brings in the car and they decide that the piston's shot?
See.
Well, my health-wise, I was battling a cold that was sinus allergy, drainage, phlegm in the top of my chest. crackling at night when I'm sleeping. Ethan can hear me. So I'm rough, but I'm pushing through. And I already can tell, like, if I can just get a stint on Saturday, I may, I'm going downhill. I may give up Sunday. But at that point, the car is out needing help. And so I shift into what can I do? And I'm not a wrench or a mechanic, but it quickly became, do we want to try to swap engines? So half of the team stayed behind to disassemble my car. And I went with Eric and Ethan to go find a potential 4.6 V8. That's when I really was getting bad with my phlegm and breathing, but I was like focused, in the moment of trying to do what the team needed. And
it's funny what adrenaline will do for you, right?
Yeah, and we can cover us finding it, but we found it, brought it back.
Oh no, do that now. Stay in the moment.
Tell the whole story.
Well, it was interesting. I'd never done it. You guys have all done this for 15 years, and you guys have swapped engines and gone to junkyard, so it was new to me. We we actually, Ethan's calling a few people. He's got a lady on the line that might have one, but she can't get the boss to like give her a quote. And so we just stopped by this other place, and this guy's great, man. He is a character. I wish y'all could have seen him. Southern. This is Bessemer. This is a South Birmingham suburb. Lower middle income. This is all the car shops are on the side of the road. The tire shops. This guy's straight out of NASCAR. I actually read Bobby Allison's book, and it's like 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and he lived in Bessemer. And this guy must have been his friend. I mean, he knew everybody. We told him what we needed. He goes, "Let me help you." And he just starts, he got a sandwich in one hand and his cell phone in his shirt pocket. And he starts calling all these people and telling stories. And you got this, I got this. All right, I'm going to send them over to you. Here, talk to these boys from Dallas. They're running a race out there at Barber. It was great. Nice. So he actually found, he was our agent basically.
Sherpa.
And he found it wasn't just a junkyard. It really was an engine junkyard. I mean, I've been to junkyards with cars, but he found this one and it was, what was the guy's name? Sherlock. Yeah. Sherlock at ABC Motors or whatever, scrapyard. So we get over there again, bad part of town. I think, I had to get cash. So we stop at like not a 7-Eleven, but a local one. And there's
payday loan.
Everybody in there's buying 40s and smelling like reefer. It's quite a scene.
812.
Yeah. And so I get 500 cash and we go to this junkyard and there's
an engine, buddy. No problem.
Yeah. So he's got cars, but there's engines laying everywhere. I've never been to a junkyard where all the engines have been pulled because I was thinking when you guys go swap engines that you have to go to the pick and pull. You have to take all your tools, take the engine out of a dead car, bring it back, swap. I mean, these engines already out and there's 200 of them. And he says, "Oh yeah, that's a 4.6 V8 right there out of a Mercury." I'm like, "How can you tell by looking? They're everywhere." And there's oil everywhere. I mean, this thing is a EPA nightmare. They don't care. There's people lined up. There's a guy in front of us getting 3 engines. He's got a flatbed. So Sherlock has a forklift, but it's really a bulldozer. And he picks it up. They've all got seatbelts on them. So he picks up the engine and he puts it on this guy's flatbed. And the guy's getting 3 of them. And he hands him 1,500 cash, 500 a pop. And then we're still not next because someone else is in line. I mean, this is like a production. I mean, it's like an assembly line. And the guy's nonstop. He doesn't have time to talk to you. And Eric's like, and I get it. Eric's like, "Well, I'd love to pull off the oil pan before we get it because there's 2 to pick from. And we want to get one that's in decent shape." And I'm like, "I don't think we're going to have time for that. I think when Sherlock brings his forklift over here, we're just going to have to go." But Eric did found another guy and pulled the oil pan off. It looked good on the underside. The rockers looked good. There wasn't too much milkshake. So we found one. It took a long time because we were waiting because he was so busy. But we got the junkyard 4.8 liter V6 out of a Mercury and paid him cash and we drove back and you guys had started to disassemble on my original engine. At this point, I'm fading hard. I mean, I'm hacking. I sound awful. I'm driving. And basically, you guys had found someone to give you a loaner engine hoist. Y'all strapped up the junkyard engine, got it out of my truck, and I left. And I basically went to the hotel, took a hot shower on my chest, and immediately started looking for urgent cares, which are now closed by 5 o'clock on a Saturday. So I went to an actual hospital emergency room. I'll try to keep it short. I'm okay now, but it was the phlegm going down in my chest became acute bronchitis, and I knew that I needed the steroid breathing inhaler to help open my chest. And, so now you're in the ER waiting an hour and a half for that. But I eventually get the steroid shot and the steroid breathing. And I'm texting you guys and listening to how this swap's going. And I'm freaking in the ER going, God, I got screwed if I've ever seen one. My engine blows up and I'm in the ER. But you guys were doing heroic work, trying to figure out this swap while I was down for the count. So I appreciate all y'all's help.
Yeah,
I thought you looked like you bulked up. It's all the steroids.
Yeah.
So how that worked from you guys' angle? So you're pulling the racing motor out of this Mustang that's seen a lot of laps. I mean, since the last time that thing has had a new motor.
It had, yeah. I'll tell you what, though, it was very clean. Your engine, I'm used to working on leaky garbage. Your engine was nice and clean. I mean, I would have eaten not soft food items off of that engine.
A hard pretzel, maybe.
Yeah, a hard pretzel, some Starburst, or not? Yeah, Starburst, maybe. I don't know. I got to give credit to Ford Motor Company because Pat, you'll attest to this. As we were, two guys who have never touched a Mustang, never touched a Ford mod motor, never touched their transmission. That was pretty easy. It all came apart pretty darn easy. And there was room to work. Once you got the exhaust out of the way, the headers, all the transmission bolts were pretty readily accessible. Everything on the front assembly drive was really not that hard to get to. We had a pretty good time taking it all apart.
It's almost like that thing was engineered to be manufactured by somebody who's on their third beer by the time they start the workday.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, how far did we get before they got back with the motor? We had manifold off.
We had the intake, fuel rail. We had the top of the engine cleared off. We had the front. We had the radiator out of the way, so there was room to pull the front to pull the engine out, because on that car the engine comes out of the top.
Non-negotiable. It is coming out the top. There is no plan B.
Yeah, it's not like the BMW where you can drop 4 bolts on the subframe and drop the whole thing out of the bottom. And power steering was still on by the time they got back. I think we had the transmission.
Transmission bolts were out, but I forgot to take the starter off because I got a tongue lashing from Eric about that.
Yeah, there was something else on the front. Oh, the power steering we didn't do. Because I thought that it might be because on the BMW you can take the power steering off with the car, and so I thought I didn't know, and I didn't want to pull it if you could, and so they got back, but I think that we all thought that engine that they were getting, that it was fully dressed, right, and that was how it had been sold to us, was it was fully dressed, but the dressing was bad. And so that engine had to get taken down to just the long block, and everything was going to have to swap over onto it. So then there was a lot of work in moving brackets, and we were going to have to pull the crank pulley off of the engine, and we couldn't get that off, and so we ended up. But the other one had one on it. It just wasn't the big hydraulic one. And then we start looking at the engine, and it's more filthy internally than had been advertised. Big surprise, the junkyard engine guy maybe had confused his 1.46 engine for the other. This wasn't one that had come out of it might have come out of a Grand Marquis, but I don't think it was a Grand Marquis that had been driven just on Sundays to church. unless that last trip ended up in a lake.
Yeah, I got
there was
charged
a
with
little-
getting that motor to turn over, and I was pumping water out of that thing for several minutes.
Yeah,
there's
these
lot of junk
junkyard
in it.
engines were out in the exposure. They had mud and dirt in the spark plug holes. If they had open holes, there was water or mud in them. There was nothing that was covered.
Yeah, my experience with that, I bought a $600 Civic one time that the motor was then placed in the trunk of the Civic. And when I had it looked at by an expert, yeah, that doesn't age well, right? I mean, cylinder heads exposed to the elements, exposed to moisture over time. The seal, the valves rust, the valve seals or seats or whatever. There's really important little things that you don't want to rust. So I remember seeing a picture of your proud new motor and pinch zooming to the oil cap that wasn't there and thinking to myself, it'll be a struggle.
Everything under the valve covers actually looked pretty decent. Somehow those were protected. It was the intake runners and the intake valve stems and like the crank and like the cylinder walls and the oil pan, everything down there, that was sketchy. The person that said this motor is going to be great, it's going to go really well in the race car, whomever that may have been on the team, that was very optimistic.
I think that was Sherlock, the salesman who had the crane. So
yeah, probably so. So we keep cranking on it, and we get to the point where, so we had borrowed an engine hoist from
like my first engine hoist. It was pint sized.
Yeah, it was the smallest Harbor Freight Pittsburgh engine hoist, which is fine for some cars, but we needed something with we needed something with a longer arm on it, and this one just didn't have that. So, between the fact that we're trying to pull the engine using the same seat belt, torn off seat belt that's tied onto the two exhaust manifolds and wedging it out, off of the transmission, on a just too short. A big thanks to the Toyota guys for loaning it to us. It just wasn't big enough for what we needed. We needed the 2-ton, and we're fighting with it. We just really can't get it separated very well. We don't have enough. We just at about, I guess, 8:30 maybe on Saturday night. It's full dark. Now, fortunately, we're working under the lights because of the lights we had up in the pop-up tent. But it's like, and the rain is going to come in between midnight and 1. Like, this thing's got to be buttoned up. If we don't have it tested and running, that's one thing. But we've got to at least have it buttoned up before the rain comes in, or it's just not going to work, right? And because we're all going to get soaked and awful and be already just bleary-eyed, tired at that point. Like, some big mistake's going to get made if we don't have that done. And things were just not coming together the way we needed them to come together, and we didn't have the tool that the hoist really is what we needed. The tool that we really needed in order to make it happen the way we needed to. And frankly, getting the other engine was going to be a real nightmare anyway. Trying to get a engine onto a transmission with a hoist that's only using a seat belt, so you really have not much control over angle, rotation, anything. That was going to be really a nightmare to get that pilot bearing, the end of the transmission to the pilot bearing.
So two quick questions. What time does Harbor Freight close, and where's your commitment?
So we wouldn't have even had to go to Harbor Freight. They had a new hoist that we could have gone and picked up at O'Reilly, about 10 or 15 minutes of the track. Up the road, the Buc-ee's is on. If you go away from the interstate, there is the Buc-ee's, where you turn right off of that to go to the track. If you go back the other way and away from the interstate, about 10 minutes away, you get through Leeds, which is like 45 miles an hour, and then 25 miles an hour then 30 miles an hour, and then 10 miles an hour.
And then 65.
There's pretty much almost right next door to each other. There's an O'Reilly, an Advance, and an AutoZone. And one benefit of driving a relatively late model Mustang versus E36 is that you walk into any of those auto parts stores, and between the three of them, we're going to be able to find pretty much every part we needed to rebuild that engine or to swap the engine out of the other car. So parts availability wasn't really at issue. But the O'Reilly had a couple of hoists for sale, but at that point, like the state of the other engine was so questionable.
Okay, that was a limiting factor.
Yeah,
we were snapping stuff. I had to take the exhaust manifolds off, and I snapped one stud and on one side, and there was more going to happen. And it got to a point where Todd was in the ER sending us text asking how we're doing, and I think I was maybe the first one that brought it up. That was like, I know we can do this, but is this the right answer for Todd and his car? Like, because this is not right. This is not a Lemons car. This is a NASA CMC car that gets run in Lemons sometimes. Like, is this waterlogged junkyard engine from Sherlock what he needs? And I think we kind of...
Yeah, because that clearly wasn't going to be the long-term solution for Todd. Like, it could have been the Sunday solution for Todd, but it wasn't going to be the kind of thing that he can then go and just run at Crescent or ECR or whatever his next race is. So, like, among all the factors, then Hunter, we're kind of kicking this around, like, but we've all done well. I mean, Nate hasn't done this before, and I don't know about Ethan, but Eric and I have certainly done it a bunch, and you've done it, Matt, and like as a sort of core, it's like we're going to throw ourselves at this and get this problem solved. But at that point, it sort of became, Nate brought it up, and Hunter, called Todd, and pretty much it dawned on all of us like this probably is, like. I think the question that I ended up asking Eric was, look, in the best situation, do we have this done before the rain comes in? Because we're all getting more tired. It's not getting any lighter out. Nate just, not that it was his fault. I mean, they're rusty exhaust manifold bolts. Those break all the time, but one of them just snapped off, which means we're going to have to go through the process of finding a replacement and getting that one out, or we're going to have an exhaust leak and it's not going to run right. What's the chance that we're going to pull this off, or are we going to put ourselves in and more importantly, put Todd in a situation where he has a crap engine in his car that doesn't work and another one that has to get back to Dallas because we can't just, abandon an anchor here or on the side of the road somewhere. Like, let's not, at some point, if you're not going to be able to get out of the hole, at least stop digging. Right. Yeah. And that's kind of the point that we got to was, is this
we're doing more harm than good if we keep going.
So it's like 10 p.m. Saturday and you guys.
No, it's like 8:30.
But we caught on quickly enough that we all still got a decent night's sleep.
Yeah. So we got,
Hunter calls me, and at this point I'm out. I'm in the ER. I'm done. I'm not going to be racing the next day. So I'm just, it's up to you guys. I'm saying, look, you guys are doing all this labor. You guys have done this before. If you can get it done or not. I want you guys to do it so that I feel bad that my car's broken. So I want you guys to get it swapped so that you guys can all get some driving tomorrow because I feel bad that my car's puking out. And every single one of them on the speakerphone said, don't worry about that. We've been doing this for 10, 15 years. We've had days when you just don't get to run on Sunday. It's no sweat off our back. So don't, Todd, feel bad that your car broke and we're not going to get to run. And in reality, it's their decision whether they want to go through the night in the rain. And then they told me that even if they, from that point on, did 5 more hours and swapped it, there may have been a 30% chance that the new engine would run properly on Sunday. And with those percentages, it wasn't worth it. In light of the fact that they were all willing to throw in the towel and miss Sunday because they've done it before, and Sunday was looking like a torrential, constant downpour of a solid inch of rain for 8 hours, which it turned out to be, miserable driving conditions, half the field quit, packed up, and went home. Obviously, we love to race, but looking back, I think y'all made the right call, just because even if you had stayed up all night and gotten it and it was sputtering around, it would not have been an enjoyable drive on Sunday.
Yeah.
Shit, Todd, pardon my French, but if that car had been 100%, it wouldn't have been an enjoyable drive on Sunday. The attrition rate at this race was something we haven't seen in a long time. We started with 130 cars on Saturday. Sunday started with 60.
Wow.
And went down from there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even Rude was shocked up and just left.
Yeah. We talked to Eric's halfway through Saturday, and he was surprised how few cars were left running.
Pretty miserable.
The rain was significant. Like we had hoped it would be, just kind of a drizzle, and it was not. I mean, it wasn't raining sideways. Like it wasn't the hardest rain any of us had seen, but it was a constant, legitimate rain. From whatever time we got at the track, 9:30 on Sunday morning.
Yeah, it came in at 2 a.m. or whatever, and it never stopped. It just didn't.
The entire
going back and reading the Facebook pages and stuff, nobody was having a good time. People were just hydroplaning. There was a beautiful Corvair out there that got the whole quarter panel smashed up. It's not nobody's fault. It just there was no traction to be had. The conditions were just awful.
Lots of cars got busted up.
Yeah,
on their own accord.
Who ended up doing good? Who ended up winning this battle?
I have no idea.
It might have been Tatas.
I think we did, because we didn't get rained on, and we didn't have to change a motor overnight, and we didn't have to drive in that crap on Sunday. So I think we were the winners.
Well, you didn't. Todd did. Todd had to tow his car home with probably.
Flew home. It was great in my driving shoes.
So we're fast tracking. We're fast tracking a bit here, Todd, because we're a bit into this pod. But what did you end up doing with that Mercury-shaped anchor?
So I was in the hotel recovering all day Sunday at doctor's orders. So these guys heroically packed up the car in the soaking wet and loaded it. And I told Eric, I said, I can't take, there's my truck is packed when I'm going to the track. There's no room for another engine unless you put it on the dovetail, and that's not safe. I'm fine with you. And we can't leave it in the paddock. So you guys may just have to take it to a junkyard and drop it off first before you load up. Eric was going to make it work, man. He's the master Tetris, and he put that junkyard engine in the truck bed up against, the cab as far as it would go, secured it down, made everything else fit, and put a whole bunch of stuff more than normal in the race car and on the trailer. It was super loaded down, so we had an extra 500 pounds. It was really low, but we made it. But he made it work. So I've got it home.
Nice.
I've got my original CMC 4.6 liter V8 busted engine in the engine bay, ready to go to the engine overhaul guy. And then I've got the junkyard engine in the back of the truck. I'm going to see if he wants it or use it as part of his rebuild. See if he wants the core, and if not, I'll bring it back home and put it on a rack and take it apart and learn from it. So
nice. Yeah, and you're running a 4.3 liter V8 truck, right? You're not exactly running a twin turbo Cummins turbo diesel thing.
No, it's a 2008.
We should have just stolen the motor out of your truck.
Yeah, it would have. It's a 4.6 V8. That's actually who won Heroic.
Yeah, right. What the hell?
No. I got screwed.
Going to look for we have one right there.
Heroic Fix was someone that fixed their car. I got screwed with someone who had a BMW, and they blew their engine, and they took their wife's BMW engine and swapped it in, and that was her daily driver. So she got screwed. So they won the I got screwed award, even though they put their car back on track.
That's why Alyssa has an ILX or whatever, in case the K-Miata ever needs a motor.
Yeah, keep them close. It's
a 2008 F-150 with 250,000 miles. 7,000 pound on the towing, and it is right on the border. Boy, that sucker's Carolina squatting. Barely made it home.
Man, random tangent. I secretly have a love for an F-150 Lemons build. It's such a ubiquitous vehicle. I think it's not the worst idea we could do, but it'll never happen. But
you know how I get behind that is if we trophy truck it.
Yeah.
Oh no, you go full NASCAR.
No,
Slam it.
We moved that. No, I'm saying we moved that engine into the bed.
Okay, I like that idea. I'm thinking
trophy truck.
I'm thinking no bed giant wang. Yeah, from a
Oh,
simplicity
yeah.
standpoint, 150 giant wang, no bed. Maybe like start to build in some aero off the back of the cabin there. But
Yeah,
there's a couple of race trucks in Lemons, S10s, I guess.
Yeah.
yeah.
You can get an independent rear suspension off of Expedition.
Yeah.
You know, there are solutions here, but
Yeah.
So I know a guy that autocrosses a full size truck from that era. The problem you run into is they have so much mass that you end up. His problem, he just keeps shearing tabs off of things, sway bar links, like control arm tab. Like there's just so much energy going on there that you just shear parts off of each other.
So what you really do need to do is take a trip to Mooresville, North Carolina, like to the outlet mall, and get the used NASCAR hubs and all of that stuff, right? That are overbuilt, so you can just run your F-150.
Oh my god, I've never wanted to visit a location more than like the Pratt and Miller outlet store.
Right.
Okay. So one of my family friends, he builds these ARCA cars, and he gets to go to the graveyards in like South Carolina. That he says if you order these pieces, they're $50 a piece for this like titanium retainer or something like online. But if you go to the graveyard, you can just like put both arms around a pile of them and shovel them into your truck for $50.
All you can carry. Yeah.
Getting fuses from the junkyard. When you go to pick and pull, you just fill your pockets with fuses and hardware, and then you pay for that alternator that you actually got.
That's stealing.
Yeah.
All right, we've gotten way off topic there, guys. But okay, so we're not feeling hot. You get home, Todd. You get home. You look like a living human being now. We're excited that you're alive. I'm sorry your weekend didn't go well. We do need to wrap this pod, but any other hot takes from the weekend? I don't want to leave anything out.
I want to know what the plan is, Todd.
Yeah, Pat and I talked about this. What's the going forward? Because there's two routes. This is how race cars go. Either it's fixed within 2 weeks, or it sits on jack stands for 18 months.
No, somewhere in the middle. Eric drove most of the way home because I was still recovering. So I used that time to text and call and message board all my CMC guys and got a bunch of different options and recommendations. Michael Mosty, who you guys know, I think he raced with y'all before at ECR and Lemons. He's a master CMC guy. I've been doing it for 15 years with his brother. He gave me a good recommendation for an engine rebuild guy in DFW. Mosty's been doing this for 15 years, so he's gone through 7 engines and he keeps using the same guy and he's really good. So I'm going to that guy. He's going to do a rebuild of my engine. I'm delivering it tomorrow and got about a 4 to 6 week schedule. I'm not putting any time pressure on him. He basically said, when's your next race? I'll get it for you. I'm like, I don't want to rush you. I probably need to take a couple races off to help pay for the engine rebuild. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I've got a guy. I think it's going to work well. He's going to rebuild it, put it back together. I'll probably be ready for April or May to get back on the NASA schedule. And when I get my car, maybe it'll be even better. And I'm just going to run CMC. And I will now be driving with friends who have Lemons cars.
Nice. You want to give a shout out to that engine builder, just in case our thousands of listeners, our 100 of billions listeners need an engine built?
Richard Painter, Richard's machine shop in Haltom City.
Nice. Haltom City.
This bears mentioning. It's something we all talked about behind your back during the race weekend. It is unfathomable how few problems you've had with that car since you purchased it. When we told you the motor was dead, I mean, reasonably you were surprised. And you were very upset. You wanted to find seats for all of us. You wanted to figure out, how to salvage the weekend. And like you said, the rest of us all went, this is racing. This is what happens. Like sometimes like shit just blows up. you have had astronomically good luck with that car, and I hope that continues. I hope this is the worst thing that ever happens. And I guess the good news is you got a good enough group of friends that even when the worst of the worst happens, we're willing to do 2/3 of an engine swap, then undo it, then load your truck with a new crappy engine boat anchor, and send you home with your own problems.
Thank you. No, you guys are great. I appreciate it, and I'm learning this is part of it. I'm hoping that after this rebuild with this great engine rebuilder, my car will be even better. Looking forward to seeing how it runs afterwards. And I'm finished with crossing a CMC car over into Lemons. I'm just going to keep them separate. But I'm going to keep my schedule of running CMC with NASA. And then I've got this, got some fun Lemons events on the calendar. If I can find a ride, I'm wanting to do Hallett and Road America and Houston. And it's quite a fun adventure.
Nice. Any thoughts of going to the 5-liter with this?
Yeah, I talked about it with the guy. A lot of the guys have Fox bodies 5 liters. Some of the guys have like 94 to 96 Cobras with 5 liters. There's 2 of us with the regular 4.6 V8s. I asked everyone, since I'm rebuilding an engine, is this an opportunity to just go ahead and switch and convert to a 5.0 to get a more powerful engine? And to a man, everyone said you could, but that's super expensive because it's not just dropping an engine in. It's a different harness, it's a different fuel system, it's a different computer. So it's not just dropping in a $3,500 engine. It's a big redo.
Yeah.
And once I found this guy, and he knows and this Richard Painter guy, not only does he do engines all the time, he also is a racer. He's a champ racer. He races for 15 years. He knows exactly what he's doing. I told him it busted at Barber. He goes, "Oh, I love Barber. I've been there 15 times." So this guy is wonderful.
So what you're saying is that your competitors told you not to put the bigger, stronger engine in your race car.
You've been played.
My competitors looked at me funny every time I told them I was taking my nice CMC car to a Lemons race, and it finally panned out. It took 3 Lemons races, but it finally panned out.
Yeah.
That's fair. All right. Well, that's exciting, Todd. So new adventures ahead. More arrive and drive. More focus on CMC for the Mustang. But man, you gave it your all. I appreciate that. You've been doing a ton of driving on that car, and you really tested the heck out of it. And I'm excited for you to have a nice hot motor and see how you do for the rest of the season. So good stuff.
How much are you allowed to hot up that suspension while the engine's out?
Now the suspension
rule on that.
The suspension is already at the CMC limit specs, whatever. I mean, the engine is stock. The suspension is modded up for CMC rules, but it's at its CMC rules.
But we need to maybe fine tune some alignment specs and
you can do that. You can do alignment and camber and toe and stuff like that. But it's got all the aftermarket stuff that it can have.
Have you had the shocks rebuilt yet? Sorry, have you had the shocks rebuilt since you've been running it?
No, but you
should consider that.
They're Bilsteins.
Yeah. Especially with all the Lemons running you're doing. I'm just saying, like, they might be to the max of the spec, but with that much running, you may consider sending out the shocks for a rebuild while the engine's getting done, because that'd be a decent. Maybe Nathan's giving me a funny look, but
no, I agree.
Yeah, because those, I mean, they last a year or two after heavy running, and it's not a lot of money, and it's
especially with the Bilstein being a street style stock or a street style shock and strut assembly, it doesn't necessarily last as well.
And then the other thing I was going to say, Todd, is we need to show you how to do a front end alignment, because you can't really do much to the back end of that being a stick axle. But we need to show you how to do the toe and the camber on the front of that car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's relatively easy to do. I mean, I don't think it's. I mean, once you get a system down, it's not harder than doing brake pads.
Yeah, at the CMC races, I've seen the guys use camber plates, and they put it on my car once to show me. I mean, I don't know exactly how it works, but I get the concept. But you're right, I need to learn how to do it right.
Yeah. Todd, since you're on the mic, and we're wrapping this up, do you have any other shout outs? Anything else to announce or discuss tonight?
No, just thanks to you guys, the TARP team. It was a eventful weekend. Sorry it worked out the way it did, but you guys seem to say this is part of racing, so I appreciate your support. Me bringing my car and having the things happen to it, but you guys were great all along as a team, and look forward to the next event we all get to do together, maybe at Hallett. And Hallett's always a fun time, and we can get a couple cars up there and the raceport and have a fun weekend.
Sounds like a plan. Mulry,
Well,
what you
I
got?
was going to say, Todd, thanks for bringing the car out for us when when all of our rides disappeared and Miku was not playing happy with us to get her out there. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry about what happened with the engine, but I appreciate you coming out there and really, I mean, you heard us on the phone, but nobody was sore about like not getting to drive on Saturday or Sunday. I mean, that's just racing and lemons. And I told somebody, I'm like, well, Spickard's unfortunately finally gotten the full lemons experience, except that you didn't get to be there while we were sweating out the engine.
I think hospitalized counts.
Yeah. Fortunately, I don't think we haven't had that with anybody else yet. So Todd's breaking new ground once again.
Shout out to the Leeds County ER.
Yeah.
I actually made a joke. We all had 3 lemons wristbands, and I'm laying in the hospital bed talking to these guys on the phone when they're basically saying we're gonna pull the plug. And I said, hey, Mulry, one more thing. You guys all have 3 wristbands. I've got a 4th because I've got the ER wristband. He goes, yeah, yours is a whole lot more expensive than ours. And that was true.
Yeah.
And I love the pull the plug comment while you're in the ER. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's
No, not that plug.
Not that plug.
Not that plug.
Good stuff. All right. Mulry, any sponsors to shout out?
No, but just thinking ahead a little bit, I'm hoping that. So I'm out of town this next weekend. Weekend after that, I'm going to try and finish up the last couple of things on Miku.
By the way, to all the new listeners, Miku is the 96 E36 that we run in Lemons.
Let's throw that right in here at the end of the show. If they've made it this far, they know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Get the last couple of little things like the rear quarter panel windows installed, and I'm looking to, depending on weather, late February, early March up at ECR to do shakedown to get her ready for Hallett in May.
Beautiful. I like it. That's exciting. So really refocusing now on the BMW. We're going to get that ready for our next chapter, which is probably Hallett in May. So yeah, that's exciting stuff. Nathan, what you got going on?
Thanks, Eric Rude, all the crew for putting on the race.
Amen.
Whether it was crazy Sunday, credit to all the corner workers for sticking it out, putting on a race for everybody. Whoever won it, I don't know who you are. Congratulations. You did great. Really proud of you. Thank you, Todd, for providing a car. Like that was awesome. I got to, add another track to my list, add another new car I got to drive. That's always a joy. No matter what happens after that. Like that, being on track, feeling the G's in the corner, that is always a joy. Hanging out with all the guys, hanging out with Hunter. God bless Hunter. He knows he's not a wrench. Man was always there with a sandwich and a Coke. Like he was making parts runs. He was doing everything he could that wasn't turning a wrench. God bless him. So thanks to Hunter. It was nice to finally put a name to a face with Nate Schleveen and Derek Steinkamp. Getting to meet them in person.
Oh, yeah, you had to meet Nate. Nice.
Good dudes. Helped us out a couple times with some stuff. Nate was an expert. We could not figure out how to get the freaking fuel, the hoses off the fuel rails. And and Nate came over and just immediately he's like, yeah, it's a weird tool. And we're like, oh shit, we have that tool. And he's like, oh great. And we managed to get it all done. He's the man.
Is that thing that slides inside the?
Exactly. I had never messed with that. I knew there must have been a tool. Looking at it, you can tell like there's a thing. You have to do a thing, but we didn't.
Well,
know.
It's a Miata thing because it's a Ford part.
I've never broken that yet. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyway,
future
sorry.
coming. So thanks to Nate and Derek, and then of course Tetanus Racing, Troy and Brett and all those guys. They were loaning us tools and offering advice and providing a warm place to stand and a fresh cup of coffee. So thanks to everybody that helped us out this weekend through all of our shenanigans.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Looks like Todd's got a late coming sponsor shout out. What you got, Todd?
Special thanks to our teammate Eric Strong, extraordinaire. He's awesome. He crewed. He helped drive the tow vehicle, set up the paddock. He was lead on the engine swap and all of the diagnosis. Kind of my caretaker on the way home. All around great guy, and I enjoy his company. He's just a wonderful teammate. Look forward to racing and crewing with him again.
Eric's a great dude.
If it weren't for Eric's humility, you would think he was like working on like some sort of like trophy for best person in the world. But he's such a good person, he wouldn't even do that. So Eric's awesome.
And he has a Jaguar for sale. If anybody needs a Jaguar with a Cadillac engine, he has it for sale. He wants to get rid of it. It's a great car. It definitely hasn't been sitting under a tarp for years. It's great.
And for sale, it's like just get it out of here.
Get it off his property.
Be good enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody please make a mistake immediately. I'll hand deliver this. It's a pinnacle of luxury. It's a Jaguar with a Cadillac motor.
I think if you're willing to pay money for it, he'll throw in the other Cadillac motor that he has for it.
It's a V24. No, wait, V16.
No.
Cadillac powered Jaguar.
Definitely
it's got
V8.
two motors.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
You can make that happen.
They're not both in the car, but
and it would cost you in the tens of dollars.
The tens of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is more than we make off this podcast. So there you go.
So buy some merch and Murphy will subsidize it.
Yeah. Buy some merch, buy a Jag, buy a ticket to a Lemons race. You're going to have a great time.
Like and subscribe, rate and review. Big shout out to all the drone pilots out there in the world, except for the bad guys. And random shout out. Guys, thanks so much. It was so cool to live vicariously through your adventures at Barber, and I appreciate you hopping on the line tonight. And I appreciate anybody that's listening to this thing at an hour 40 into it. Your commitment is legendary, and we will see you at the track. Good night, everyone.
Good night, America.
Good night, Dave.
Good night, Dave.
Good night, Dave. Right.